Right, going back to one of our developing top stories, we take you back now around speculations when it comes to the Thabo Bester matter. We're joined by Singabakho Nxumalo, who speaks for the Department of Correctional Services. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. As a department, Mr. Nxumalo, I know that you've refuted claims that Thabo Bester has been returned to the Mangaung Correctional Centre, where he was initially serving his sentence as a convicted criminal. Why would there be suggestions that he has been sent back to the facility to begin with?
A very good evening, and thank you for having us. We were very clear when Mr. Bester landed from Tanzania that he was admitted at Kgosi Mampuru, the second correctional center. But I think the issue then generated interest when he went to Bloemfontein Magistrate Court, and after that then there were rumors and people saying that he was being taken to Mangaung Correctional Centre, which was fake news. Straight from court, he was taken back to Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Centre. You will understand that Mr. Bester was detained at Mangaung previously, where he escaped. So taking him back there will not make any sense when there are still even investigations going on. So as a department, it was important that we reaffirm the fact that he remains at Kgosi Mampuru, the second correctional facility, and if he needs to travel to any other area for court appearances, we will do that, as he is a sentenced person. Therefore, Correctional Services needs to take him to any court that would require him to be to register his presence.
When it comes to those court matters, is he expected to be appearing in the next few weeks at all?
The court yesterday, I think, indicated that the matter was postponed for about a month. But as a department, we rely on the court giving us the necessary warrant to say a particular inmate is required to appear before a judicial officer. We then make it a point that we present that inmate on the set date and at an hour that will be specified. So as a department, we stand ready to take inmates to court whenever we are required to do so, irrespective of the location.
But are you aware at this point whether or not he will be some of the few who will be expected to appear as soon as the matter resumes, or has he not been indicated in terms of a date when this matter does resume?
The court will liaise with us, so the head of Centre at CMEX will receive necessary correspondence, and a security plan will have to be drawn, making a point that he is transported safe. At this stage, I wouldn't want to speculate if he's been given a date of appearance, but the head of Centre is likely to have such details. But what we can assure as a department is that the mandate is clear. Correctional Services has to detain inmates, keep them in a safe area, and whenever they are expected to appear in court, we transport them there and also back in the safest way. And we've seen that at times people would ask to say, when is the particular inmate expected to leave the particular center, and the hour where they are expected to arrive in court. Unfortunately, we do not disclose such the details, because they will then elevate the risk element. It's important to understand that Correctional Services is within the security space. Therefore, it's important that the information that we give out does not in any way put the life of any person at risk.
When Bester did appear in court this week, speaking through his lawyers, he said that he doesn't want to eat the prison food because he believes that his meals could possibly be poisoned. Have any complaints been filed about threats to Bester's life?
We do not have any complaints thus far, and we also checked upon his arrival from court yesterday if he was served with dinner, and the response we got is that yes, he was given dinner, and also this morning he was given breakfast, which he consumed, lunch as well. So at this stage, we can say that all is progressing well in terms of what is expected of an inmate and what is expected of Correctional Services, in making a point that the needs of an inmate are responded to, which also relates to provision of meals. So there are no complaints. The inmate is taking his meals, and he will also be treated just like other inmates in terms of the routine, which will not specify, but the special needs of any inmate is something that must also be looked into.
Kgosi, Mampuru is one of the big 5 facilities. What are the differences in facilities in terms of security measures and processes that are applied there? I mean, you mentioned earlier just about how the investigations are still underway at the Mangaung facility, but what differences are there between the two?
Mampuru, the second correctional facility, accommodates all classifications. You'll have low-risk inmates, medium, and maximums. But in addition to that, you also have a CMAX where inmates classified to be of higher risk will be accommodated. It is a different routine when you compare to other correctional facilities, meaning that how inmates are monitored is different. We have to keep an eye, with those inmates almost at 24 hours, and at no point they must be in a position to predict or get used to a particular routine. They do get their hours of exercise, and whenever they need to consult a social worker, be it a healthcare practitioner, those are afforded to them. But then the freedom in terms of movement is not the same as an inmate classified to be of low risk. You will not find inmates at a CMAX doing work outside the center or going to the kitchen or other areas. Due to that particular classification, you also not find them in communal cells because of the risk that person could be hurt by other inmates, or that inmate could also inflict danger, to other people. So it's important, therefore, that you respect that particular classification, so that at no point an inmate will find himself vulnerable, or other inmates may find themselves at the risk of the one who's classified to be of high risk. But also the type of officials that you will find at a Supermax, they've got a special way in terms of doing their work. They know exactly what to do, and they know how to respond to whatever matter that an inmate may be confronted with. So there are differences, but what is important is that an inmate must be kept safe, and that an inmate at no point must feel as if his basic rights are being tampered with. But it's important to also keep in mind that it's someone classified to be of high risk, therefore the limitations there are quite important.
There have been calls for government to immediately terminate G4S's contract at Mangaung prison and perhaps nationalize the facility. In my conversation with unions like SAFTU, speaking to Zwelinzima Vavi last night, for instance, he said that privately operated prisons are not in any way beneficial to society, and that it's perhaps a myth that such institutions are efficient, competent, and cost-effective for the government. What processes are happening between now and 2026 when it comes to that contract, and what have your legal services advised when it comes to the terms of your contract which result in termination?
The Mangaung Correctional Centre's contract will expire exactly in 2026. And we've made it very clear as a department that we have no intentions to either extend or renew that particular contract. And in terms of what is to happen between now and 2026, we also made our point that our legal services is looking into that matter, and they will provide us with an opinion. We fully understand a whole lot of issues that have been raised. They do concern us, but a contract is something that you have to treat it with utmost care, and making a point that you do not act in a way that will then come back to haunt you. So as a department, we've sent that contract to our legal service to say, please study it and give us an opinion in terms of what other avenues are available between now and 2026. But we've also said, having taken into consideration things that have happened, security breaches and other things, we then said, no, it's important that the director of that particular prison is removed, and appointed a temporary manager from Correctional Services, so that at least we are able to account of the things that are to happen from now moving forward, but also that the facility is able to function efficiently. So that is where we are at the moment. We have not pronounced in terms of what is to happen between now and 2026, as that opinion is awaited for.
What penalties has G4S incurred for Thabo Bester's escape, for instance?
That matter is ongoing. You will recall that there has been quite a lot of exchanges between us and G4S and other parties with interest in that. But in terms of the contract, it's clear to say for a particular offence, it falls under within which schedule and what is the penalty that is to happen. The challenge that we had is that G4S was maintaining its word in terms of saying that Thabo Bester committed suicide. Until recently, it is only now that we can then start with necessary processes, because you do not simply say because someone has escaped, here's a penalty. There is a particular committee where matters are taken into. They will look into it and then thereafter to say, in terms of the contract, also looking at the concession contract, that an offence of this nature will therefore talk to this particular penalty. So once those processes have taken place, we'll then go into a position to say that penalty has been issued and the department has been then compensated for in terms of that. But it's something that is part and parcel of how the contract is managed, but there are those structures that you need to respect. Other than that, you may find that any party may then approach a court to say things were not done the right way. We're making the point that we follow that contract to avoid unnecessary delays.
As you follow the contract and try to scrutinize some of those details, how are the penalties graded, perhaps, for an example, looking at the current circumstances?
It differs. In a correctional facility, you will find a number of measures which may relate to security. To say a security breach of this nature, let's say for instance, the perimeter fence is faulty, or there are things which are not correct there. It will then specify to say what type of a penalty that must be issued. It will also say to say, should there be assaults between inmates, how do we handle that? Or in case of an escape, and then what is it that you need to look at and the penalty that must be issued. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's demarcated to look at various areas. But what is important is that a correctional center has to function and be in line with the Correctional Services Act. And in addition to that, there are standard operating procedures that must be followed. Should there be a deviation somewhere there, then the department will need to act to that effect. But then, as I've said, there are processes that must be followed to say notification must then be sent to us. We need to know well in advance what happened, how did it happen, if there's a need for investigation that will be done, and also how those matters are then taken to this specific committee that I spoke about, which will then look into it. That's where then matters are deliberated on, and then a sanction will be issued.
Very well. We have to leave it there for now, but thank you so much for your time there. Correctional Services Department spokesperson Singabakho Nxumalo.